Have you ever met someone whose very silence made others cautious? They don't need to speak loudly. They don't need to put on a show. Yet their presence, the grounded strength that radiates from within, makes even the most cunning hesitate. This isn't the power of status or money. It is the quiet force of a strong mind. A mind that others cannot easily read, cannot easily manipulate, cannot easily break. And here's the truth. You can absolutely build such a mind. You don't need to be born gifted. You don't need social power. You only need the courage to walk this path. But first, you must realize this. Many people think they are living free, while in reality they are trapped inside invisible prisons of the mind. Old beliefs, inherited limitations, unnamed fears, emotional addictions that keep them from ever building a truly resilient mind. In today's video, you'll learn how to recognize these prisons and break free from them. You'll learn how to rebuild a mental foundation so strong that no one dares to underestimate you. A mind that can master emotions in the midst of chaos. A mind that no longer needs validation from the outside world. And a mind that, once mature enough, can pass that strength on to others. If you're ready to walk this path, stay with us. And don't forget to hit subscribe to the Stoic App channel right now and join us on this journey of building a mind the world cannot ignore. 1. The invisible prison inside your mind. There is a prison where most people spend their entire lives without ever realizing it. There are no bars, no guards, no locked doors, yet it is the strongest prison ever built. That prison lies inside your mind. You are not weak. You are not incapable. You are simply trapped behind walls you no longer remember building. These walls are not made of steel. They are made of the things you've heard, the things you've believed, the things you've experienced and never questioned. You grew up hearing the same phrases over and over again. This is just how our family has always been. Someone like you could never dream of that. These words etched themselves into your mind like truths that never needed to be verified. You don't know when it happened, but you accepted them as facts. Over the years, they became reinforced by fears, dressed up as reason. People called it wisdom. They called it being realistic. But in truth, it was simply fear rationalized. Be realistic. Don't take such risks. Better safe than sorry. You thought it was wisdom, but it was only fear programmed into you. Unprocessed, painful memories also help to build more walls. One failure, one moment of ridicule, one rejection, and you told yourself, don't try again. Don't be foolish. Gradually, the sky inside your mind shrank until you no longer dared to look up. To avoid pain, you retreated into a safe space, but inside that very space, your mind slowly lost its vitality. Even past success, which seems like glory, can sometimes become a chain. When you've been praised, when you've stood atop some peak, you begin to fear trying something new. Fear tarnishing that old image. Fear that failure will stain your past glory. And so, you lock yourself inside a shell of success, afraid to grow beyond it. You think you are free, but in truth, what you think of as me may well be a collection of old programming things you've long since forgotten you accepted. And the more you forget, the more tightly and strongly that prison seals itself around you. Let me tell you a story. There was a young eagle that accidentally fell from its nest before it had the chance to learn to fly. A farmer found it and raised it among his chickens. It grew up in the chicken coop, ate like a chicken, walked like a chicken. Day after day, it believed it was a chicken. One day, a wildlife researcher happened to pass by, saw the eagle, and was stunned. He said to the farmer, "This is not a chicken, it is an eagle king of the skies." The farmer laughed. "No, it's a chicken. It has never flown." The researcher decided to take the eagle out to an open field. But when he opened the cage, something heartbreaking happened. The eagle simply lowered its head, taking small steps along the ground. The vast blue sky was right in front of it, but it didn't dare lift its gaze. Not because it lacked wings, not because it lacked strength, but because, in its mind, it believed it was a chicken. We are no different. Many people have talent, desire, opportunity, but they are trapped in such invisible mental prisons that they forget how high they were meant to fly. Stoicism saw this thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. The door to the prison you stand behind is not locked. But to walk through it, you must first have the courage to recognize you were the one who built it." And now, I want you to try a small exercise. Take a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. Write down 3 mental cages you suspect may be holding you back. It could be, "I'm not good enough to do that. People like me can't succeed. I need others' approval before I can truly be myself." Write them down. Don't judge. Just recognize. Because once you can name your prison, you can start finding the key. The first step to building a strong mind is not learning something new. It is letting go of old beliefs that no longer serve you. To break that prison, you need to master one simple but vital skill: questioning yourself. And that is exactly what we will begin doing in the very next chapter. 2. To grow stronger, you must dare to break old limits. The most dangerous belief is not a false belief. It is a belief that has never been questioned. Because when a belief remains unquestioned, we treat it as truth. And once a belief becomes a default truth in our minds, it silently defines the limits within which we allow ourselves to live. The remarkable thing is this: the smarter and more successful a person is, the more likely they are to be trapped within these limits without even realizing it. Because once a belief operates as part of your identity, you no longer see it. You simply live within the boundaries it draws. You never touch what lies beyond, because you believe those things were never meant for me. But there is one simple, powerful question that can crack those walls. Is this belief actually true, or have I merely accepted it as true? We carry dozens, even hundreds of limits we're not even aware of. I'm not good at communication. I don't have what it takes to lead. I'm not suited for a creative career. I don't deserve a happy relationship. But have you ever stopped to ask, who said that? Where is the real evidence? Or are those just words you once heard from others, from past experiences, and quietly accepted as part of who you are? The limits in your mind are not stone walls. They are thought patterns repeated often enough to become invisible rules. But any habit can be changed, if and only if you have the courage to face it. I once met a man who had done exactly that. Born into a poor, working-class family, he had heard the same phrase repeated throughout his childhood: "As long as we can get by, that's good enough. Wealth is for other people." That phrase echoed so often that he came to accept it as his destiny. As he grew up, even though he had dreams, he chose only safe, low-risk, manual jobs, just enough to support himself and his family. He didn't dare to think beyond that because that old phrase was always in the back of his mind. Until one day, in his 30s, by chance he heard a speaker pose this question: "Who told you that someone like you can't be wealthy?" For the first time in his life, he truly paused. The question wasn't just a motivational slogan. It struck straight at the core belief that had quietly ruled his life for over 30 years. He asked himself, who did say that? The answer was clear. Not the people who had dared to try. Not the ones who had succeeded. Only those who had lived in fear and accepted a smaller life. And he began breaking that limit. Not through some overnight revolution, but through very small steps. Learning new skills, spending time reading about business, trying out small projects. He failed sometimes, but each time he tried again, he chipped away at another layer of the chains in his mind. 10 years after questioning that belief, that man wasn't just out of poverty. He had built 3 small but stable businesses. But more importantly, he had reclaimed the freedom of his mind. He was no longer living a script written by others. He was writing his own. And he is far from alone. Out there are many who have stood before limits that seemed unbreakable, like Damon John, who rose from poverty in Queens to start FUBU from nothing, like Chris Gardner, once homeless, who shattered countless limiting beliefs about who can achieve what, or Howard Schultz, born into a poor working-class family, who broke through mental limits to build the Starbucks empire. What they share isn't IQ, it isn't circumstances, it is one simple thing. They dared to question what others had accepted as limits. You might think such stories are rare, but the truth is, almost every great change begins with a question like that. Epictetus once said, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." And I believe this. It's not real limits that hold us back. It's how we think about what we call limits. You don't need to overthrow the world in a single day, but there is one very small practice, if done consistently, that will open a door far bigger than you think. Each day, write down one belief you will question. You don't need to change it immediately. Just dare to ask, is this true, or have I simply grown used to thinking this way? Because when you dare to face your own limits, that is when you begin to break them. But breaking old limits is not enough. If you don't have a new, stronger foundation to replace them, your mind can easily be pulled back into the old cycle. That is why in the next chapter, we will not only break old beliefs, but we will build an entirely different mental foundation, one that no one can easily shake. 3. I take full responsibility for my life. There is one phrase that sounds harmless, but is in fact the most dangerous thing you can tell yourself. I have no other choice. Every time you think this way, you hand over control of your life to something else, to circumstances, to other people, to your past, to what we call fate. But a person with a strong mind will never allow themselves to fall into that state, because they understand one thing. As long as you believe you have no choice, you will always be led. As long as you keep blaming circumstances, other people, bad luck, you will never build an unbreakable mind. A strong mind does not blame. It does not make excuses. It does not sit around waiting for someone to come save it. This does not mean denying pain or pretending adversity doesn't exist. But even when pushed into the worst of situations, a strong mind holds on to one supreme right, the right to choose its attitude and its actions. That proactive mindset This is the very first stone in building a mind no one can break. I once heard a true story I'll never forget. A young warrior once, a special forces soldier. On a mission, he was severely injured, losing a leg. When he woke up, he couldn't believe what had happened. A man who once took pride in his strength, in his ability to fight now, lay motionless in a hospital bed. The first months were hell. He was consumed by anger, by despair. Every morning, the first thought that crossed his mind was, "I have no other choice anymore." Everything seemed to collapse. And just when there seemed to be no way forward, he came across a quote, "You can endure anything once you believe it is your choice." A teaching from Epictetus. And that one line changed him. He began questioning himself. Do I really have no choice? The answer was, he did. He could choose how to see himself. He could choose whether to continue living as a victim or move forward as someone in control. He could choose to start training again. And he chose. The first day, he sat up. The next day, he practiced moving on crutches. Then came the day he learned to use a prosthetic leg. Every step was filled with pain, but he no longer told himself he had no choice. He said, "This is my choice." Years later, the man who once believed he had no path left became a Paralympic athlete. And the thing he was proudest of wasn't the medal. It was the simple truth he carried within. I take full responsibility for my life, no one else. You don't need to face extreme adversity to learn that lesson. Even now, there may be corners of your life where you're still blaming your incompetent boss, blaming an unsupportive family, blaming friends who didn't believe in you. But try this. Pause, look those things straight in the eye and write down, I take responsibility for just 3 things. 3 areas where, starting today, you will stop blaming and start taking ownership. And if this chapter makes you pause and ask, am I truly taking full responsibility for my life? Don't keep that question to yourself. Share this video with a friend, someone who may need this reminder too. And if you want to continue building with me a mind no one can break, hit subscribe to the Stoic App channel. Each week, we'll explore new chapters not just to sound wise, but to live stronger. But to maintain that proactive mindset, there's something else you must learn, something just as vital, knowing when to let go. Because not everything is worth holding on to forever. That is exactly the next step in building an unbreakable mind. 4th, what I can't control, I let go. The weak always try to control everything. They fear letting go. They try to grasp everything in their hands, from the actions of others to the emotions of others to the random events of life. But the more they try to control everything, the more anxious they become, the more likely they are to lose control of themselves. The strong are different. They know how to choose the right things to control, and they dare to let go of the rest. This is one of the golden principles of Stoicism, a principle that sounds simple, but is the very foundation of building an unbreakable mind in this ever-changing life. A Stoic always keeps a control list in their mind, a very clear mental boundary. What I can control, what I cannot control, I let go. You can control your thoughts, your attitude, your reactions. You can control your own decisions, but you cannot control the thoughts of others. You cannot control the weather, misfortunes, illnesses, or the final outcomes of every effort. And the clearer you become about this, the lighter your mind becomes, the more focused, the more steady. You stop wasting energy on battles that can't be won, and you no longer panic when things beyond your reach start to change. I once heard a story from a veteran pilot, a man who survived a moment most would have thought was certain death. It was a routine training flight, but as the plane climbed, the main engine suddenly shut down. The cockpit was dead silent, only the warning alarms blaring and red lights flashing. A young trainee beside him was nearly in panic. But the seasoned pilot in that moment focused on only one thing. What do I still control? He knew he couldn't restart the engine immediately. He couldn't control the wind conditions. He couldn't stop the freefall that had already begun. But he could still control how to handle the plane in a glide. He could still control the angle of descent. He could still control his own state of mind and alertness in that critical moment. And it was by keeping his mind focused on what he could still control that he saved his own life and the lives of everyone on board. The emergency landing was a success. Later, he said, "The biggest mistake of an inexperienced pilot is not lack of skill, it's trying to control what can't be controlled. When you learn to let that go, you gain the calm to master what remains." This is not only true in the cockpit, it's true in every moment of life. You can control your choice to speak the truth, but you cannot control whether others will believe it. You can control your effort to improve yourself, but you cannot control when the next opportunity will come. You can control your attitude toward failure, but you cannot control every outcome of the game. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And when you focus on that, you will stand steadier than any adversity." If there's something troubling you right now, I invite you to try something very simple. Write it out in 2 columns. On one side, what I can control. On the other, what I cannot control. The moment you do this, you'll see clearly most of the things that torment your mind fall into the cannot control column. And once you see that, you can consciously let them go, not out of weakness, but to preserve your strength for what you can do best. Because when you let go of what doesn't belong to you, you free up the focus and inner power to face what truly matters. And whatever challenge comes next, you will learn to see it not as a disaster, but as an opportunity to train your mind. That is the very next step on the path to building an unbreakable mind. 5. Every challenge is training. When the weak face challenges, they often blurt out, "Why is this happening to me?" But those with a strong mind ask a very different question. What is this training me for? That is one of the core differences between a fragile mind and an unbreakable mind. Because challenges are not the enemy. Adversity is not something to be avoided. If you see challenges as misfortune, you will never learn how to grow. But if you learn to see every adversity as training, your mind will begin to step into an entirely new level of strength. Those with strong minds do not fear challenges. They don't sit around waiting for life to go smoothly. They step into difficult experiences by choice because they know it is those very experiences that forge true courage and resilience. One of the most profound examples of this is the story of Viktor Frankl. Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist, but in 1942 he was arrested and sent to a Nazi concentration camp. In that place, everything a human being could depend on was stripped away. Freedom gone, possessions gone, loved ones gone. Even life itself threatened every single hour. In the midst of that living hell, what set Frankl apart was not physical strength nor cleverness. It was how he chose to think. In the darkest moments, he did something very few could. He rebuilt his entire framework of thought. Frankl realized one truth. In any situation, everything can be taken from a person except one thing: the ability to choose their attitude in any given set of circumstances. Later he would write, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." And during those days in the camp, witnessing death every day, starving, freezing to the bone, Frankl did not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He asked, "What can I learn here? What can I do to preserve my dignity and clarity of mind in this situation?" That mindset is what allowed him to survive, not just physically but mentally. And after the war, from that experience, Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning, one of the most powerful works on human resilience ever written. Frankl's story shows us something very clear. Challenges do not destroy a strong mind. They sharpen it, deepen it, strengthen it. Seneca once said, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests the mind. Without adversity, the mind cannot mature. Without challenge, resilience cannot be forged. Just as a sword cannot become sharp without being tempered in fire. So when you face challenges, don't ask, 'Why is this happening to me?' Ask, 'What is this training me for?'" That simple shift in your question is the first step to reclaiming your mind. And if you want to sharpen this ability, try a small exercise right now. Write down one lesson you've taken from a recent challenge. It doesn't have to be something huge, a conflict, a failure, something that didn't go your way. That is enough. But don't write it as a story. Write it as if you are extracting a lesson, as if you are forging a new layer of strength in your mind. If this chapter has helped you see challenges through a new lens, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who may also need a new perspective to grow stronger through their own trials. And if you want to keep building an unbreakable mind, subscribe to this channel. This journey still holds many profound lessons ahead, because each time you do this, you will realize adversity does not make you weaker. It makes you harder to defeat. And to walk through those challenges, you will need to learn something very important next: how to stop needing applause from the outside world. That is the very next step on the journey to building a mind that cannot be broken. 6. I do not need outside validation. If you live for approval, you will die from rejection. That is a trap many people never see. They believe they are living for themselves, but their every action, every choice, is driven by how others might see them. They wear that outfit not because it suits them, but because the crowd says it looks good. They say those words not because they truly believe them, but because they fear being different. And they turn down worthy opportunities simply out of fear of being judged. Those with strong minds are different. They live by their inner values. They know what they believe in. They choose to do what is right for them, even when no one understands, no one applauds, no one agrees. And because of this, they are not easily manipulated, not easily led by the stares, the praise, or the shallow standards of others. The less they need external validation, the freer they become. A story I once heard from a major entrepreneur in Silicon Valley left a deep impression on me. He had built a tech startup from the ground up. After 5 brutally difficult years, he and his team began to attract attention. A global corporation approached him with an offer to acquire his company for over $20 million, an amount that, for many, would mean instant freedom. But as he reviewed the contract in detail, he noticed something. To receive that money, he would have to agree to change the core product in a way he completely disagreed with. A product that he and his team had built not just with skill, but with heart, and with the belief that it must serve users in the best way possible. If he accepted that deal, he would be abandoning the values he had stood for over the past 5 years. His team, family, friends, all urged him to sign. On paper, the deal looked too good to pass up, but he refused, quietly, without long explanations, with one very clear statement: "I cannot sell what I believe is right just to buy applause from others." Later, his company grew far beyond what he had originally imagined. But the point is not that later success. It is the way he preserved his inner freedom, even when surrounded by temptation. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not waste the rest of your life worrying about what others think of you." This is not a call to selfishness. It is a reminder that if you surrender your inner autonomy, even if you gain everything on the outside, you will remain someone easily controlled. And here is something you can start doing today to build that ability. Choose one small action, anything, and do it purely because you truly want to, because you truly believe in it, not to please anyone else. It could be how you choose your dinner tonight, how you reply to a message, how you dare to say no when you don't want to take on more work. Don't wait for a big moment. It is in these small actions done for yourself, not for the gaze of others, that you gradually build a mind that is steady, one that cannot easily be shaken. And to live this way without needing outside approval, you will need a very important skill: the ability to master your emotions. Because if you cannot master your emotions, it will be easy for others to manipulate them with a nod or with a shake of the head. And that is exactly what we will learn next. 7. Don't let anyone control your emotions. Whoever controls your emotions controls you. That is a truth few people dare to face, because most of us still believe we act from reason. But ask yourself, how many times have you gotten angry over a random comment? How many times have you become flustered or lost your composure just because of someone else's glance? And how many times have you looked back later and asked yourself, why did I react that way? If you allow others to easily make you angry, flustered, or lose control, you've already given up your power in the game. Mastering your emotions does not mean suppressing them. Suppression only causes emotions to build up and later explode in unwanted ways. Mastering emotions means observing them clearly, recognizing which emotions are arising, and then choosing how to respond in the most conscious way. One practical tool you can use to start training this is the model pause, reframe, response. Pause. Pause for a moment when emotions arise. This brief pause is the space where you reclaim control. Reframe, look at the situation from another angle. The questions to ask yourself now are, will reacting emotionally here really help me? Is there another way to view this? Response. Once you've gained a clearer perspective, then choose how to respond. And when you respond from a place of control, you not only preserve your own value, you also make others tread carefully. I once witnessed a great example of this. There was a candidate interviewing for a sales director position at a large corporation. The interview was tense. The interviewer kept asking provocative questions, interrupting, and even mocking the candidate's accomplishments on his resume. Many candidates in that situation would have lost their composure and reacted impulsively. But this man didn't. He paused for just a moment, smiled, and replied calmly, I understand you must have your reasons for these questions. If you'd like, I'd be happy to elaborate further. That one response completely shifted the dynamic. The entire room seemed to relax. The interviewer gradually changed his tone, because it was clear this was not someone easily manipulated through emotion. But mastering your emotions isn't just about handling one interview. It can make even the most powerful arenas treat you with respect. One of the clearest examples of this is Barack Obama during the 2008 US presidential campaign. At that time, he was the most heavily attacked candidate in the media and on social networks. Opponents used constant psychological tactics, distorting his past, attacking his family, spreading vicious rumors. Many in his campaign wanted him to hit back hard to show strength, but Obama chose a different strategy. In debates and in front of the media, he maintained a calm presence, even with a touch of humor. When provoked, he paused, smiled, and replied in a steady, deep tone, "I believe the American people are smarter than you think." That one line not only diffused the attack, but exposed his opponent's lack of composure. Over time, more and more people observed, Obama is not someone easily angered, and that calmness is what makes him so formidable. That is the power of pause, reframe, response in action. A mind that can stay steady under attack not only protects itself, but forces the opponent to respect it. Epictetus once said, "No one can make you angry unless you allow it." And Obama proved that on one of the harshest political stages in the world. You can start training this skill today. Next time you feel triggered, try the pause, reframe, response model. If you can do it even once, you'll realize the control over your emotions has never belonged to anyone else unless you hand it over. And once you begin mastering your emotions, you'll notice something fascinating. The voices around you, the pressure from the crowd will no longer pull you so easily, because you will no longer be reacting unconsciously. You will think and choose your own path. And that is exactly what we'll step into in the next chapter. 8. Stop seeking agreement. Dare to think differently. If you always agree with the crowd, your thinking is being controlled by the crowd. This is one of the greatest paradoxes that few people recognize. Everyone claims to be an independent thinker. But look closely. How many opinions have you truly formed on your own, and how many have simply been echoes of the crowd? A strong mind does not fear being different. In fact, they understand that true difference, when it comes from mature thinking, is the very source of new value. But to achieve this, you must begin by daring to ask questions. Do not assume that what the majority believes is automatically true. Do not accept that what many are doing is what you must do too. Those with strong minds are not controlled by the fear of having to fit in. They know true, meaningful value cannot be born from safe thinking, and they accept that they may have to stand alone for a very long time in order to preserve their own voice. I once read about a very unique business leader. Instead of chasing the latest trends in the market, he had a weekly habit. He would ask himself one contrarian question, such as, "What is everyone in this industry taking for granted, and is it really true?" And from these questions, he uncovered countless blind spots in how his industry operated. In just 2 years, by relentlessly questioning popular beliefs, he completely reinvented his company's model, putting them at least 3 years ahead of their competitors in innovation and customer experience. In the real world, There is no shortage of those who have chosen this path of independent thinking, and it is precisely their difference that has made them impossible to ignore. Steve Jobs didn't build Apple by following trends, but by asking, "If I abandoned all old thinking, what product could I create that would truly touch human emotion?" Galileo Galilei stood against the belief that the sun revolves around the earth, accepting isolation and persecution simply for a truth he dared to think differently about. Elon Musk didn't build SpaceX or Tesla by repeating what the industry was doing. He asked, "If everyone says it can't be done, why not try?" These people were not necessarily right all the time, but it was their courage to think differently that allowed them to create value that those seeking consensus could never achieve. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "Think as you wish, do not live as others do." A powerful, simple reminder, but one of the hardest to practice. So start with one small exercise. Write down one popular belief that you will challenge this week. It could be about work. It could be about life. It could be about a social habit you've been following by default for years. Look at it and ask, is this truly right, or have I simply never dared to think differently? And if you find these chapters helping you look deeper into your mind, helping you dare to think more boldly, share this video with a friend whom you believe also needs to step out of the cage of consensus. And don't forget to subscribe to the Stoic App channel so that each week you'll have more mental training sessions like this one, not to blend in with the crowd, but to strengthen yourself. But you should also be prepared for one thing. When you begin to think differently, you will start to feel alone, because most people do not want to be made uncomfortable by opposing questions, and that loneliness is the price you must pay for a free mind. We will talk more about that in the next chapter. 9. Accept loneliness if you want freedom. You cannot truly own yourself if you are unwilling to walk through loneliness. This is a truth few will tell you. Everyone encourages you to grow, to think differently, to live by your own values. But almost no one mentions this. Along that path, there will be a stretch of road you must walk alone. And this is not a choice. It is an inevitable part of any truly free mind. Why? Because when you start thinking differently, acting differently, living differently, you will naturally separate from the old. The relationships that once made you feel like you belonged will begin to feel distant. The conversations that once felt easy will start to feel hollow. Not because you are trying to seem superior, but because your mind no longer fits inside the old mold. And the first price of freedom is that you will no longer rest safely in the comfort of consensus. Loneliness, no one likes it. But those with strong minds understand it is part of the path. Loneliness is the price you pay for the freedom of thought, and the stronger you grow, the more you will drift from the crowd. Not because you want to, but because you have no other choice. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this better than anyone. He spent most of his life in solitude. His ideas at that time were seen as heretical, misunderstood, rejected. He once wrote, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become a monster, and if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." Nietzsche didn't just write about the loneliness of the independent thinker. He lived it. Years without a single like-minded companion, long days in silence, under skeptical eyes. But from that space he birthed ideas that would transform modern philosophy. It is from loneliness that the strongest thoughts find room to grow. But let me be clear, loneliness is not merely the feeling of emptiness. It is a high-level test that many have failed. Countless people begin the journey of thinking independently, thinking boldly, but when they step into the realm of loneliness, they cannot bear its coldness. And so they turn back, shrinking their own minds just to belong once again. Deep loneliness is not simply the absence of others. It is standing firm in your values when the world doubts you. It is listening to your inner voice when no one outside is applauding or agreeing. It is realizing this. To preserve the freedom of your mind, you must relinquish the comfort of acceptance, and not everyone can do that. The Stoics taught clearly, no price is too high to own yourself. And that price, first and foremost, is your willingness to be alone, with your own thoughts, needing no approval, no agreement. Practice this deliberately. Each week, set aside at least 30 minutes just to be with yourself. No devices, no noise. Sit, walk, or simply give your mind space to wander freely. At first, you may feel empty, restless, but over time you will realize something crucial. At the deepest point of loneliness, you will meet yourself most clearly. And once you have passed through that silence, once you no longer fear being alone, no longer fear thinking differently, no longer fear being apart from the crowd, then you will truly be able to pass on the value of thinking to others. Because by then, your thinking will no longer be driven by the need for consensus, but guided by clarity from within. And that is exactly what we will explore in the next chapter. 10. Passing on a strong mindset to others. Success is not about how much you build, it is about what you pass on to others. Those with strong minds understand one thing deeply. A strong mindset is not meant to be kept to yourself. A mind, no matter how sharp, if it cannot share its value with others, is merely a lonely flame in the dark. But when you know how to plant seeds of awareness in the minds of others, that flame can ignite an entire forest. Legacy is not about assets. Legacy is how you help others think stronger, little by little. It is how you leave a mark on the way they see the world, how they face adversity, how they stand steady amid life's daily challenges. And when you do this, you will realize the presence of a strong mind needs no loud words, no grand gestures. Sometimes, your very presence alone makes others tread carefully, not because you threaten them, but because you force them to confront the fragile parts of their own thinking. I always remember a true story. In a small mountain village, there was a humble teacher. He taught for over 30 years, in a poor school, no modern equipment, no advanced curriculum, no prestigious degrees. Yet each generation of students who left his classroom carried with them an invisible treasure he had planted, an independent spirit, a mind that knew how to question, to think, to stand on its own. One day, a former student, now successful, returned to visit him. He asked, "Teacher, why didn't you ever force us to think like you?" The teacher simply smiled and replied, "If I had done that, you would always need me to make decisions for you. But what I wanted was this, that no matter where life takes you, whom you meet, or what you do, you will be able to think for yourself, to discern, to stand firm." That is a truly strong mind. A mind that does not seek to control others, but seeks to give them the ability to think freely. The Stoics said it clearly, "Teach others how to think, do not demand that they follow you." That is the art of legacy, and the beautiful thing is this: anyone can begin building such a legacy starting today. Choose one strong thinking principle you have learned on your journey and share it with someone. No preaching, no forcing. Just plant a seed and let them take the time to absorb it, to understand it, to make it their own. Remember, a strong mind does not need to prove itself. It does not seek approval. It does not need applause. It only needs to remain true to its own values and let the world adjust when it encounters you. That is true quiet power. That is the deepest legacy a strong mind can leave behind. In the end, a strong mind needs no proof, no display, no need to impress others with words. It only needs to exist true to its own values and let the world adjust when it encounters you. But building such a mind is not the work of a day or a single video. It is a long journey, the journey of every choice you make when no one is watching, the journey of every limit you dare to break, the journey of every moment you dare to stand alone instead of blending into the easy crowd. And remember this, you do not need to become someone else. You only need to become the strongest version of yourself. The version that remains clear no matter the storm. The version that, no matter how others try to read or control, stands as a mind they cannot touch. If this video has helped you see that path more clearly, share it with someone who may also need this reminder. And if you want to keep walking with us on the journey to building a strong mind, subscribe to the Stoic App channel now, because this is only the beginning. The road ahead is long, and you won't be walking it alone.